guess it's time. I just like to give everybody a minute or two. Let's wait a minute and then we can call the roll. I see Dawn. Okay, Dawn, could you call the roll for me, please?
Absolutely. I also do want to let people know that we are live streaming and recording this meeting, and those both have already started. Cindy Butts.
Here.
Wendy Clark. Heidi DeWeingart.
Here.
Claudio Gualtieri. Commissioner Mosquera Bruno. Matt Puglisi.
Present.
Lisa Tepper Bates.
Here.
And Greg Ugalde.
Present.
We have a quorum in attendance for this meeting.
Great. So our first action item is the resolution regarding the financing of Armstrong Court Phase 4. I don't know if there's any other phases after this, but to be presented by Steve Norris.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through Armstrong Court Phase 4. The board action is to approve a construction of permanent first mortgage loan of up to $16,700,000 from taxable bond proceeds to Armstrong Court Phase 4 Development Limited Partnership, their entity formed by the Housing Authority of Greenwich. The first mortgage loan will be evidenced by a two-note structure. The first being a construction note in the principal amount of up to $7,200,000, paying interest only at a rate of up to 6.25% for a term up to 24 months. This interest rate of 6.25% is conditioned upon closing by the end of the year. If the closing does not occur by December 31st, 2024, the rate is subject to change to the prevailing rate at the time of closing.
So it could go down as well, right? Up or down?
Correct. Yeah, depending on what the market looks like at that point or the interest rates. So
Okay.
correct. But that is a special rate at this time.
Yeah.
So yep. So then the second is a permanent loan, the principal amount of up to $9,500,000 at interest rate of up to 7.45%, with a permanent term of 35 years, and that'll be amortized over 40 years. Amortization will commence upon the 25th month following initial closing, and then will continue through the 35-year permanent term. I'm going briefly through the development summary. Armstrong Court Phase 4 was awarded 9% tax credits in 2023 under the preservation class. And Armstrong Court Phase, well, all the Armstrong Courts are being developed in Greenwich, which is a town where 5.73% of the housing stock is affordable. It will be the fourth phase of a gut substantial rehabilitation project. The overall larger master plan site includes phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's a total of 6 buildings and 150 units with all 4 phases. Talking just about phase 4, it includes 48 units and 2 buildings. The unit mix will be 36 2-bedroom and 12 3-bedroom apartments. 15 units will be targeted to households at or below 50% AMI, and then 33 units will be targeted to households at or below 60% AMI. The Housing Authority of Greenwich has committed project-based housing choice vouchers for 15 households that will be at or below 50% AMI. The overall gut rehabilitation of the existing buildings is comparable to the scope of work that was proposed and completed on Armstrong Court Phase 2. The extensive degree of the work is necessary for Armstrong Court for a variety of reasons. Some of the more significant reasons include the need for added handicapped access, converting exterior balcony hallways to gain living space, increase energy efficiency, and bring the buildings into compliance with current building and energy codes. Overall construction is expected to begin in late summer of 2024, within an 18-month construction period, an additional 6 months for rent up and stabilization. And then the permanent loan is expected to close by late 2026. Going to the development team, Armstrong Court Phase 4 Development Limited Partnership is the owner of the development. And I think, as I mentioned before, they're affiliate of the Housing Authority of Greenwich. The Housing Authority of Greenwich owns and manages approximately 1,220 units of family, senior, market, and assisted living apartments. They also operate under various programs, both federal and state, and have had some substantial tax credit experience. Some of the projects that have received previous LIHTC allocations are Armstrong Court Phase 1, 2, and 3, which have all been completed. BRD Builders LLC is a selected Connecticut-based general contractor. They have more than 20 years of relevant experience in both affordable housing and mixed income developments. One completed CHFA development includes McGuire Court. The project architect is Geddes Architects, they are based in Westport. And we've had experience with them as well. Some completed CHFA funded developments include Armstrong Court Phase 2 and Phase 3. So they have previous experience with the Armstrong Court projects. The property manager will be the Housing Authority of Greenwich. They are a CHFA approved property management company. And they've also managed the other phases of Armstrong Court as well. From our experience, they've complied with all program requirements, and there are no issues outstanding. Going a little bit into the location, outside of Armstrong Court, the town of Greenwich has also made significant investments in the area around Armstrong Court. The investments include new curbing on Hamilton Avenue, which is directly in front of the development. The construction of a new bus shelter at the Armstrong Court stop. So you have a bus stop right there. There's new swimming pools and playgrounds at a nearby park that's basically across the street. And then they've also modernized some nearby elementary and middle schools as well. There's a major bus line that has a stop at Armstrong Court, as I mentioned. And you can go to shopping centers in Stamford, downtown Greenwich, and also bordering Port Chester from there. The next stop on the bus route also takes you to the Greenwich Railroad Station with services to New York City and also various Connecticut cities and towns. We did commission appraisal that provides the prospective as complete value of the property at $15,250,000. This is as of October 16th, 2023. So the loan to value ratio for the permanent loan is 62%. The loan to total development cost is 28%. Going briefly into the financial structure, the total development cost is $30,355,000 or $632,000 per unit. Construction costs also total $19,330,000 or $403,000 per unit and $308 per square foot. Outside of the CHFA finance, the other proposed financing is $13,372,000 and 9% LIHTC equity, $5 million in DOH funding, $2,740,000 a GP loan, $127,000 in energy rebates, and $707,000 in deferred developer fee. And then lastly, I'm just gonna go to the strengths, challenges, and mitigating factors. The first strength is development will be rented out to new households. All remaining existing Armstrong Court households will have been relocated to previous Armstrong Court phases. So because of this will provide 48 low-income units for new households that are in a high opportunity area. There was a structural needs analysis that was performed to identify any potential issues. And through that, there were no significant findings. As I briefly mentioned before, the development team does have extensive experience. And also this will be the fourth of a multi-phase initiative. And then also, as I mentioned, the development is in a transit-oriented location as well. Some of the challenges are delays or cost overruns during construction could have an impact on the budget. Also, construction contingency is at 5.9%, which is a little bit lower than what we typically see. And then lastly, for mitigating factors, the developer could seek additional funding sources from future competitive rounds. And also, we will require monthly construction status reports from the developer's architect, so we stay informed with any construction related issues. That sums it up. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions? I'm assuming that the reason we allowed a lower, significantly lower than standard contingency was because they've done 3 phases already.
Correct. Yeah. We also did a structural needs analysis to kind of, see if there's any potential issues, which nothing significant was found through that as well. As further comfort.
And so that Heidi, that's where I was focused a little bit too. So 5.9, it's still fairly strong for the contingency, but also you have some room with the deferred developers fee, I assume, and plus the monthly inspections. It sounds like they preferred to make it work this way. And when you look at the numbers, everybody's comfortable with the oversight in past performance to be able to do it this way.
Yeah, and having done the previous 3 phases, Greg, they understand what they're going to encounter. So it's not like they're going to strip these down and then find out that they have a problem that they haven't encountered on the other 3. So having had 3 essentially the same executions before, they're pretty comfortable with their contingency level.
So how do we agree to release the deferred developers fee? I'm just curious how that works. I mean, they get it eventually.
The deferred developers fee is
Yeah.
is a calculation that's usually done through their limited partner, but it's a calculation that's done so that it gets paid out of distributions after our debt is paid in operations over a 10 to 15 year period.
Okay, out of cash flow over and above.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any more questions? Is there any more sort of external work that the developer needs to do? Is this just everything else has been completed? Amenities or external road
As far
work?
as I'm aware, I believe this basically covers it.
Yeah, this is the final
This is it.
phase in this project, and this will complete the project. So all site work and everything will be completed.
Okay,
It's a-
anybody else?
It's a
Questions?
good looking area too, good looking building, and we certainly need it in Greenwich of all places.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a beautiful area. I drove through there, and it's the area around it's beautiful. The park's right across the street, so and the other phases look gorgeous.
The Housing Authority has done a very good job with their redevelopment.
I'm assuming the other 3 sections are all rented out also.
Yes.
I believe so.
Okay, all right, anybody else? Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Thanks, Greg. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Wendy. Dawn, could you do the roll, please?
Sure. Cindy Butts,
Yes.
Wendy Clark. Wendy emailed me. I know she's having a little bit of technical difficulties. Maybe she'll pop back on.
Okay.
Heidi DeWeingart,
Aye.
Claudio Gualtieri,
Aye.
Commissioner Mascara Bruno, Matt Puglisi,
Yes.
Lisa Tepper Bates, Greg Ugalde.
Yes.
The vote passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
Heidi, can I just say one quick thing? I want to acknowledge the work from Deb and Steve on this project at the very end, because 2 weeks ago it was a little different in that the developer was getting construction financing from its LP, and Webster ran into its cap in terms of funding, and so they had to withdraw. So Steve and Deb scurried around to put together a financing package with the help of Hazim, so that we can make sure that this project didn't stall. So I just want to recognize their efforts.
Great.
Thank you.
That's terrific. Thank you for all your hard work. I know what it's like of the last minute fire drills. Not easy. So thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, next up, I don't have the, there. So we have financing or modification for William Warner to be presented by Liz Valgorski.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Oh,
Excuse
you don't
me.
look like Liz.
Uh, Unfortunately not.
Hey, Joe.
But thank you all. William Warner's a project that is in Woodbridge. It's a 30-unit project. This effort has been a joint one between Multifamilies Asset Management Division and our workout group. So Asset Management's been working on the transfer of ownership for the property, and in conjunction with asset management, she was able to engineer this modification that we think improves the situation for CHFA and the property. So the action before you is to modify the existing loans for the property. There are 3 current loans. The first loan M will be modified to eliminate the surplus cash provisions. CHFA had been sharing in surplus cash when there was surplus cash, but in recent years it's been very limited. So in conjunction with this modification, we're going to trade off to get a larger number of income restricted units there at the property, going from 6 units to 10. The owner will have access to that surplus cash to make capital improvements going forward. Loan N is a current delinquent loan that will be brought current with the transfer. This loan is also fully amortizing. And then there was also a deferred loan on the property at 1% that we're going to term out in conjunction with this closing. So all of the obligations are going to be amortizing going forward and have combined maturities of January 1st, 2036. In the memo, we've identified the current status of the 3 loans as well as the proposed operation. You can see that terming out that 3rd loan is not going to significantly impact the cash flow on the project. As we said, William Warner is kind of a critical project in Woodbridge. It's one of the few sources of affordable housing there. So it's actually a property that is on leased land from the town. The town has approved modification to the lease to allow these greater number of restricted units. And with that, CHFA is going to proceed with the transfer, understanding that while our extended low-income housing commitment from the tax credits had expired in 2020, the property is still restricted under the regulatory agreement through 2050. So we'll still have oversight authority and approval authority over the operations and distributions of the property. Property is currently owned by John Capone. John has been operating this property for quite some time, but has chosen to exit the business and begin his estate planning. So with that, he found a buyer interested to acquire his interest and assume the debt. That buyer is Tyler Smith, and Tyler Smith's group, I believe it's Alpha Capital. They were evaluated by our asset management group and determined to be an acceptable owner and operator of the property going forward. So with our projections, giving up the surplus cash provision, having a great number of affordable units, we're anticipating a modest amount of cash flow over the coming years that, again, will be available to the owner to make capital improvements to the property going forward. And again, we'll have continued compliance review oversight of the property going forward. So with that, we'd ask the board to approve this modification as proposed so that asset management can proceed with the transfer of ownership. Any questions?
Joe, just a quick question. So did the proposal come about
I have a
for
question. I hope everyone is situation we'd have over. Hello?
to access the to expedite the transfer, or was it because the loan end was currently needed to be stabilized? It was in default previously. I like picking up the 4 additional units for sure, but was it both, or what really was the stimulus?
It was a confluence of both items. We have been in discussions with Mr. Capone to stabilize the finances here on the property, and in conjunction with these transfer talks, we were able to allow a restructure of the financials that would eliminate the delinquency, amortize and term out all of the loans so that they were paid and performing going forward.
So can you explain to me how we go from 6 to 10? Is it because he has market rate units that he's going to now restrict?
Of the 30 units, there was a requirement to only have 6 income restricted units.
Uh-huh.
The fact of the matter is that all 30 units, when you look at the market rate rents and calculate them based on area median incomes, all of the units are within our traditional affordable rental ranges. It's just that there were only 6 that were required to be income restricted for residents. So in gaining those 4 additional units, they'll have to do income verifications on those residents, and the other 20 units will still, remain affordable. However, the owner will not have to evidence and provide income data for those residents.
Okay, I see. Okay. And there was very little information on the buyer in this memo. We said it was vetted, but do we know there's sufficient wherewithal to do the roof repair in 5 years and whatever other capital improvements will be needed?
Yeah, the request here, it was just for the modification, the transfer, because it involves the assumption of the debt, is kind of a different process. It's very checklist and detail related analysis for our asset management group. So Alpha has a diverse portfolio. This is their first venture into the quote affordable realm. But with the limited number of documented affordable units here, we felt comfortable that they had the ability to manage and operate the property. Again, special care is these are 30 units in Woodbridge, kind of one of the limited sources of affordable housing in town. So it'll still remain on our radar for oversight and compliance for that area.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I saw a comment pop up from Wendy. Ron, do you want to read that? Because I can't access the comments.
I don't see
Sure,
them.
I can read that, Joe. Wendy wrote, I'm having internet trouble. Joe mentioned that we would have ongoing operational oversight. Will we be consulted in how the excess cash flow will be used? For example, will we have a say in what cap improvements are prioritized?
Since the property is under our regulatory agreement, there'll still be third-party operational site visits with Spectrum Enterprises, our authorized agent. Our asset management staff will also be authorized to go out on site. I believe they still have to provide the annual financial statements that itemize the cash flow for the project. And we, of course, are still holding and maintaining reserves, so we have approval authority over those releases from the escrow account.
Okay, anybody else? Any other questions for Joe? Okay, is there a motion to vote on this property?
Make the motion.
Motion to approve? Oh,
Okay.
go ahead, Matt.
Matt's approved. Greg is second.
Second.
Okay, thanks. Dawn,
Cindy Butts,
Yes.
Wendy Clark, Heidi DeWeingart,
aye.
Claudio Gualtieri,
Aye.
Commissioner Mascara Bruno,
Yes.
Matt Puglisi,
Yes.
Lisa Tupper Bates,
Aye.
Greg Ugalde.
Yes.
The vote passes unanimously.
Thank you. Like I said, I don't have the agenda, Dawn, in front of me, so I'm not sure what's up next. Okay, now I see it. It's this is the new pilot program. Hopefully, Lisa will be presenting the recommendation for a new program.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
This program, well, let me just, sorry, let me start with this. Staff is recommending approval of an investment of 10 million from the Opportunity Fund and or other sources to offer a pilot program that will provide a permanent interest rate buy down of 1 1/8% for borrowers that are earning at or below 100% of AMI, as determined by Fannie or Freddie, but of course cannot exceed CHFA's normal limits. The borrower must have a unpaid principal balance of at least $15,000 to qualify for the program. The funding,
Student debt. Go ahead.
yes. The funding will enable the rate reduction for up to 120 million of first mortgages for the life of the loan, not to exceed 30 years. That's our normal rate loan term. The authority will also partner with HDF to perform a post-closing check-in to discuss borrowers, home buying, borrowing, and homeownership experience, and help identify the need for any additional financial or homeownership counseling type services they may benefit from. A significant barrier to homeownership is the home buyer's inability to qualify with student loan debt. Since 2019, 40% of CHFA borrowers have student loan debt with an average unpaid balance of $35,000 and average monthly payments ranging from $205 to $277. Additionally, Black households carry 28% higher average student loan debt than white households. It is estimated that every $1,000 in student loan debt delays the home buying opportunity by 4 months. For a limited time, CHFA will offer the pilot interest rate reduction program to help those households overcome the obstacles of qualifying to purchase their first home. This interest rate reduction will help offset the borrower's student loan debt, thereby increasing their opportunity to qualify for a mortgage by reducing their total debt to income ratio. We've included a chart to kind of illustrate the different ways to view this. So I think that it might be easier if I just kind of go through the chart and talk about the savings and the effects of the savings. The interest rate, and actually I checked, today's rate is the same, is currently 6 7/8. If we do a buy down by 1 1/8%, we'll get to 5 3/4. If we look at the $300,000 loan amount, this converts to a $220 a month savings for the lower interest rate. And the cost for this, or CHFA's cost, it's around 8 points basically for us to buy the rate down. So it's a $25,000 investment. As we go a little further down, you'll see that the DTI can improve tremendously, and so can the buying power. So if you look at AMI of 80%, on the first line, you'll see that at 300,000, with that rate reduction, it will decrease the borrower's debt to income ratio by almost 3 points and give them, additional purchasing power or borrowing power of $37,000. So CHFA expects to assist 300 to 400 borrowers with combined first mortgages of up to 120 million. And with a post-closing check-in by HDF, identify areas where additional resources may benefit borrowers after closing to create healthy financial habits as homeowners. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
They don't need, just confirming they don't need to have graduated, that it applies to any student debt?
That's correct. If they have outstanding principal balance of at least 15,000, it could be in deferment and they could still be in school, or it could, as long as it's current. So it could be deferred, it could be a income-based repayment, or it could be in full repayment status.
And it can be any college, university, technical school, anything that results in student debt.
Correct. That's I believe our intention.
Okay. And when do you expect to roll it out if approved?
I think we were talking about late summer, maybe by the beginning of July. I mean, so actually, I guess it's still midsummer.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Lisa, I have a question. So you're proposing to use the DAP program in addition to the TTO, in addition to the 25,000 that a student will benefit from. So it's just a lot of subsidy into a loan. So I would suggest that if you use DAP or you use TTO, because the money wouldn't go far because you go using so much into this. So it wouldn't, I think that we need to kind of choose one of the two programs, but not both.
Sure. So perhaps and I agree with you. Perhaps we should just do the DAP. That at least gives them the minimum down payment, and then of course with the rate buy down, help them qualify.
Yeah,
perhaps something like
I'd like to say something.
You're right. Sorry.
So first of all, anybody who's eligible for this program would only be eligible for TTO. They would not be eligible for DAP, right? Because you're looking at, well, unless they're not residents of Connecticut. As long as you're a resident of Connecticut and you're below 100% AMI, and you meet the other income requirements, which are the same as for this program, you should be eligible for TTO. Should be. Of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, right? So my concern is we're trying to create, and I understand the concern about overloading subsidy, but TTO has a front end requirement, meaning that let's just say somebody has a debt to income ratio of 45 or 40, somewhere around that. And this program brings it down by 3 points to 37. And now TTO, if they're eligible, will only go as far as bringing them down to 30% front end ratio, meaning that if they had already been eligible for TTO, they might have received the entire amount as TTO, but this is actually conserving TTO because you're not using all of TTO, you're supplementing the time to own with the student loan, and it's bringing an additional resource and helping to lower that ratio, saving state resources. So I think it's important that, yes, I agree with you, we shouldn't be overloading on subsidy, but I also think it's important to preserve what we have because then we can really bring the true benefits of this program.
But my proposal is to get one or the other, no both.
Well, right now they already can't do both. We can't. Right now we don't have both.
Yeah.
No, because the
Illinois
write-up says TTO and DAP. So I'm saying
Oh,
it's
okay,
one or the other one, no both, because we were doing it
Yeah.
before.
Well,
We were doing both.
before, yeah,
Right, we no
right.
longer allow that anyway. And Nanthani brought up a good point about the 30%. It just had struck me as she was that, let's not forget, we do have a protection in the front to preserve the funds. So that if you don't need it, you won't get it. So I'm glad you brought that up, Nanthani. Thank you.
Okay.
And Sela. I think the memo should have been more clear or
Right,
down
it's an or, yeah.
time to own, so I apologize.
What, does anybody have an idea of how much we have remaining to be used in our opportunity fund?
That's a Hazim question.
I do. Yeah, it's a Hazim question. Yeah, I'm here. Hold on. I believe we have committed, at least for this year, about a few millions, and that's mostly for multifamily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, keep talking. Whoever wants to talk while I pull it
You
up.
can answer that question at the board meeting tomorrow. I'm just curious because 10 million is 10 million, and I don't remember. So,
well, but there are other ways that. Go ahead, Kazim.
Yeah. So one of the things, Heidi, about this program is we're just committing and we're not dispersing all the 10 million all at once, because the concept, when we were devising this particular program, one of the things that we looked at was comparing ourselves or investigating what other HFAs were doing in this particular space. And the one that we spoke to, they came up with a quote unquote student loan refinancing product where they would come up with the capital to refinance the existing debt, and then would restructure that student loan debt to make sure that the applicant will be able to support the mortgage payment and the revised or the refinanced student loan debt. Now, doing that structure is very capital intensive because you have to come up with the capital up front to take out the existing debt. So in our situation, by doing it as a buy down, the amount of expense is amortized over the life, and so long as they remain in the house or they did not refinance or pay off the existing debt. So while we did say 10 million, and that's the expectation how much we're going to expend, the amount of capital infusion from Opportunity Fund is going to come in throughout the life of the program. So it's not going 10 million today. You will be, layman's term, you will be like 1 million every year for the next 10 years, something like that. Yep.
I got it. No, I think it makes a lot of sense because it's the initial outlay is de minimis, really.
It's very creative too, and so that begs the question, I guess. A lot of the programs are wildly successful, right? So I have a feeling that this is going to be sought after. So do we feel that there's room to grow? Because I think it could even be enhanced down the road potentially, depending on where it goes. And it's just nice to know that if it is as successful as I think it's going to be, it would be nice to be able to know we have some dry powder behind it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's always a potential, and definitely that's part of the reason why we call it a pilot, because this is new to us. Even when we were working towards coming up with a program, we were working with Marcus and his team trying to determine the amount of impact we would need to satisfy to even make a dent to the DTI. So the exercise wasn't just like, okay, let's just buy down the interest rate. It was more about what is sufficient, and then trying to compute the amount of quote sufficient to dollars, and try to figure out all this loan amounts and brackets. And you have different income limits in different regions. So there was a lot of work that was put into it by Lisa's team, Marcus' team. And then from there, we hope that by doing the pilot, we can get more data thereafter, working with HDF, and then coming up with something different or something more. But yes, we definitely would have the opportunity to expand if the board desires.
So how do we get, if we agree to approve this, how do we get the word out? How do you expect to market this program?
I think one of our
Marcus Smith.
well, there you go.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Sorry, Lisa.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. Yeah, so I think with any program like this, we want to give it a unique name, brand, a look and feel so that it jumps out and people remember it. Obviously do the simple stuff like creating a space on our webpage that we can send people to. But I think big part of it is connecting with our existing partners, the participating lenders, our housing counseling agencies, make sure they understand how the program works so they can get the word out themselves and act on our behalf. And then connecting with the stakeholders who are already in the space. There are a number of agencies in the state that that are in the student loan space right now. Like CHFA is the obvious one, right? The Connecticut Higher Education Supplemental Loan Authority, but also the Department of Public Health has a student loan payment program for healthcare workers, right? So connecting with them to get a sense to make sure that their clients know about our programs and vice versa, right? Yeah, and I think that's probably the big thing. And I think, you know, if you're following the news and if you're in that point in your life, student loans and buying a home are two really hot topics right now. So using the media to our advantage is going to be a big piece of that too.
Heidi, this is Lisa. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure, always.
So it sounds like we think there will be strong demand, and Marcus, as you just pointed out, there's a lot of discussion right now about these twin burdens and how they intersect. So if there's only 300 or 400 slots available, what is our plan to both advertise it, but keep the pool of applicants small enough that we don't have an administrative crush of volume, A, and B, so that we don't create way too much room for disappointment for the people who aren't going to get in the front door in at least this first round pilot.
Lisa, you want to speak to how we're managing the program through lenders and how that's going to create, you want to speak to that?
Sure. I definitely understand the concern, and we've certainly experienced this before with other programs where we bring out a pilot, we want to see how it works, and then all of a sudden it takes off and we run out of money and we're not able to continue. Honestly, yeah, we definitely want to, not go overboard with the advertising up front until we see where this is going to go. But the other thing too, is that we're going to track it similarly to what we do with Time to Own, try to stay ahead of it, make sure everyone is informed as we go along and not, surprise anyone. But you're right. I mean, there's always that, chance that there's a delay or, funding isn't coming, right away. And so we want to try to make that clear up front, and also with our lenders, and let them know, don't pre-sell the program if you don't have a buyer that is really ready and has a contract and that kind of thing, because you're right, it happens and there is a lot of disappointment, and but this is the same as most state programs. They always have limited funding for certain things, and then they have to cut it off. So it's hard to manage, but we'll at least do the best we can to be upfront with everyone and let them know where we stand so that it's not a big surprise.
And we're managing it through our lender network, which I think Lisa mentioned earlier, which will help us to manage the administrative side of things. Because when they reserve a loan, which they do through our system, they're going to be reserving the funds for the student loan buy down at the same time. So we're going to be keeping track and maybe updating the lenders and the communities about the remaining funding so we can manage expectations. But you're right. I mean, as Lisa said, it is a difficult, sometimes not pleasant task when you have to deal with resources which usually tend to be limited. And we're hoping that the pilot will answer some questions for us about the availability of inventory, for one thing. That's a huge question, right? Where is the inventory? We're not limiting sales price. One of the reasons we're not limiting sales price is because we want to be able to incentivize first-time home buyers to buy in high-cost areas. Will this be enough subsidy? $81,000 in additional purchasing power for somebody who's buying a $650,000 house. That's pretty significant, but is it going to be enough? And then what are the other sort of specific needs or characteristics that come out of this pilot that will allow us to make sure that we can take that into account going forward. We believe there's a lot of potential in a program like this. What's really creative about this program is that it really doesn't touch the student loan debt, because we know we have other state agencies that are doing various things like CHFA and others. And so this allows us to provide a benefit without really taking away the debt, and the benefit is for life. So we see this as pretty unique and impactful potentially.
The narrative mentions the additional debt or the higher average debt carried by Black households. Will there be any deliberate attempt to market to these households as part of the program and the rollout, or with the lenders with whom we engage?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll jump in. So I think that's been kind of like an ongoing theme or an effort by our organization over the last year or so, to prioritize connecting with communities of color specifically. So I think this fits right in with that. The fact that it's in the narrative isn't by mistake. I think this is something that we've zeroed in on, and we want to make sure we do it right. And so it's going to be connecting with organizations we have been reaching out to over the last year or so, deliberately.
Just on that point, I don't think it hurts to, Marcus, maybe to even go in a little bit deeper in the explanation, because I had the same question. We identify it, and let's just hammer it home a little bit too, because it's limited funds. And if there is another step or two that we're going to take to make sure that a fair amount goes to those areas and then to meet that demand, I think it goes a long way. I mean, I just think this program is so creative. It does exactly that. It doesn't, we're not sticking our toes in water that we shouldn't be in, right? Trying to get rid of student debt, or, I mean, even the administration can't do that safely. But this is a program where we do exactly what our function is. And I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, and I know it's not part of the criteria, but if any of it was set aside to first generation buyers, that would impact significantly, because I don't know, other than first generation, how you'll actually be able to have an impact in that.
Yeah, we talked through that a fair amount. Cindy, that's a great question. I think that's one of the things we want to learn about from this pilot. And hopefully it will direct future generations of this pilot. But at the moment, we didn't really have a lot of information about not so much how to define first generation, but what percentage of our current home ownership borrowers are already first gen. And so we wanted to collect a little bit more data about what we're seeing, what we might see as the need to meet the first generation home ownership requirements. And so based on that, we will probably tailor future programs like this a little bit more specifically, but we felt like we didn't have any information going in and wanted to learn more. That's a great question.
I think it would be really helpful, sorry, Lisa, just 1 second, that once the pilot is rolled out, assuming it gets approved, that we understand maybe 3 months later, maybe by year end, what our experience has been, what's the impact, what's the hurdles, what are the, the benefits and
Correct.
such. So please keep us posted.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just
ahead,
one
Lisa.
additional question. I think, Nandini, you mentioned that there is not a limit on the home price. And I'm just wondering about that when you were talking about, and I think we all understand resources are always limited. So that's always a challenge. If we're trying to target the people who most need the help, I'm just wondering about the logic of not actually restricting the purchase price. If people can afford a very high purchase price, then it arguably they don't most need this assistance.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because on the one hand, you're right. You're absolutely right. We would want to focus on people who needed the assistance, and that would traditionally gravitate us toward people who are lower moderate income. And for them, purchase prices would be lower or less than higher prices, right? But there's a whole spectrum of people that we assist through our programs. It's not just folks who are at, in fact, 50% AMI. We go all the way up to 100 or even 120% AMI, which is more middle income. So if you look at that and you think about the sort of policy reasons why we're even doing this program, it's the other side of that argument is to allow more affordable in quotes, because you could argue it's not affordable, but it is affordable to a certain extent as prices have gone up. Where are people buying? They're buying mostly in the cities, right? Because that's where all the inventory is. And that's really been CHFA's experience. One of the questions that I know comes, at every board meeting is how come we're not lending, in areas where there's higher opportunity?
Right.
Why aren't we in the suburbs? And part of that is, the resources available to make it happen, and the inventory is not there, in many cases. So we felt that by limiting purchase price to say 400 or 450,000, you were going to force people, in essence, require people to buy their home in those census tracts that our lending always is in. But we're trying to expand throughout Connecticut. And so we want to provide people the ability to buy homes in higher cost areas if they have the income to qualify for it, of course, absolutely. And those will not be lower income people, potentially, depending on how much assistance they have. And so you're talking about middle income people who are also people that CHFA has a mission to assist. So we felt that there were advantages and really good policy reasons why we did not want to limit the purchase price, but I can see that it could be argued both ways.
And let's see where the demand is, because I think that
Yeah.
you're going to see a lot more qualifying borrowers too in certain markets, but let's see if we can touch a couple at least in different areas. But I definitely see that point. And to Heidi and Lisa's point, I mean, we're going to really have to watch this. But I think it's a manageable bucket to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and there's a shocking statistic about how many kids are at home well into their 30s now because they can't afford to move out or get anything anywhere near where they live and want to continue to live. So it does provide that opportunity.
Yeah, it's a DTI issue, right? It's all about debt to income. And I think it is broader, that we should just look at it, see what happens.
I think that's great. And I think you're right. Greg, it's a good point. And Heidi, you're right. We can keep an eye on it. And it's a small enough pool. But I just do worry a little bit about staying mission driven. And the mission, as we stated, is around the shortage of housing for low to moderate income families, right? So just remembering that and staying focused on that. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Totally hear what you're saying about the prices in the suburbs, but with limited resources, it's so important to stay focused. And so I'm just you know, a little bit cautious about anything that starts to go afield of that very, very pressing need for the income groups that are central to our mission.
And I'm sorry, I just want to insert this. Just remember also that we do have an income limit set at the 100% AMI. We're not going as high as we normally can and would go. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there for some consideration.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Lisa.
you.
That's helpful.
Anybody else? Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Heidi, you know, it's Hazim again. So the current balance for Opportunity Fund is about 15 million, 13.
Okay. Thank you. All right, anybody else? Any other comments? So I guess we need a vote on this, Nandini? A vote to approve?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll move the proposal for the pilot program. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, Dawn?
Heidi,
Yes.
we can just make sure that the memo is clarified on the
Or
and they
yes.
use, on the, if I cannot read the memo, I don't have
Okay,
access to it.
yeah.
I was
So
gonna
we
say
wanna
the same thing, yeah.
Change the memo to say either TTO or DAP.
Yeah, but
Or-
not a
but not both.
combination.
Okay. All right, if we can make that
Thank you.
change. Thank you. Okay, we have a first and a second. Dawn?
Cindy Butts,
Yes.
Wendy Clark,
Yes.
Heidi DeWeingart,
Aye.
Claudio Gualtieri, Commissioner Mascaro-Bruno,
Yes.
Matt Puglisi,
Yes.
Lisa Tepper Bates,
Aye.
Greg Ugalde.
Aye.
The vote passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda is the mortgage minutes. Okay. Anybody have any comments, changes, concerns? They look fine to me. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Thanks, Lisa. Second,
I'll second it.
thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, anything else, Dawn, on our agenda?
Nope, that was all.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, anybody, any other final comments? Great. All right, I guess we'll see everyone tomorrow.
You know, we
Thank you.
mortgage
Thank you.
committee had a week or two off, but I'll tell you, we're gonna come in with a bang tomorrow.
Go team.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks,
Thanks,
guys. Thanks
everybody.
for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.